Jumbo everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Safari Mack Returns to Africa. I'm Safari Mack, your guide and host, helping you make connections to the wild. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are preparing to meet up with our final bird during our expedition in the Serengeti region, but we're going to go back. We're not quite in the Serengeti. We're actually on the eastern border in a little ward area of the Busoga district in the Simiyu region, place called Mikula, where today we meet up with Africa's famous fishing eagle, or known by their Latin name of Haliaeetus vocifer. And to be honest, after a long, tiring expedition so far through Africa, I could go for a couple of fish or some good tilapia at least. But before we begin, if you're new to my channel, hit that like and subscribe button. Check out my Facebook page for content on conservation. And if you have a question or if there's an animal that you want me to do in the future, you have to send me an email, which you will always find the link to down in the description below. But if you're ready, I'm ready. Let's get to it. Now, the fishing eagle is said to have originated from a special kind of eagle called the sea eagle when eagles themselves originally evolved from kite birds roughly around 36 million years ago. Now, their closest living relative today is the highly endangered Madagascar fishing eagle. But as you can see, Africa's fishing eagle and America's bald eagle are kind of similar. This is an example of convergent evolution where they have similar structures, similar body plans and colorings, and other forms to be able to help them to survive. Now, let's talk about their habitat, their lifestyle, and their nesting. Basically, you can find fishing eagles across the majority of Africa, with the exception of the northern region and some parts, though they are able to make a stand in some pieces, but we don't want to overextend ourselves. Basically, if a fishing eagle can find a high enough perch and a big open body of water, such as a lake, a river mouth, a lagoon, or even along the coastal regions, they're quite at home. And I mean, they can live anywhere. Savannas, wetlands, swamps, even the tropical forested regions. Now, in terms of their lifestyle, they're basically said to inhabit a territory in which sometimes males and females will share together, especially if they are a breeding pair. But you don't really see them flying like in a big crowd like you see with other birds. That is of course unless the water is high enough during the rainy season where there's an abundance of food. Sometimes you can find them congregating together in groups of maybe 75 or more. But now, generally, in the breeding season, they inhabit a couple of nesting spots that they maintain throughout their entire lives, going from one nest to another depending on each breeding season, in which they will lay 1 to 3 eggs, and after 42 to 45 days of incubation, though mom doesn't do all of the work, as when she goes off to hunt and feed, she'll entrust her mate, the father, to sit on the eggs as well. But after that gestation period, 1 to 3 eggs will hatch. And a great thing about eaglets is that there's no real competition for food and all the other resources. If they're able to survive, if mom and dad are able to bring back enough food, then they will be able to survive well. And here comes an even better part. 70 to 75 days later, they're ready to take flight and begin to establish their own territories, far away from territories that have already been established by adult eagles. But if they can survive 1 year into their life, then they could live anywhere from 12 to 24 years. That's either in the wild or in human care. So not bad for eagles, huh? Now, as the name suggests, you might think that the African fish eagle eats only fish. You would think of it as what we call a specialist. It is not just a specialist, or that's a group of animals that can only survive on a certain food source, or even be able to live in a certain habitat, right? Now, like an example of that, what I mean would be like a snail-eating kite bird that only can eat snails, right? Nothing else. Not the case for these eagles, no. Instead, despite the name, they are actually able to eat a variety of different foods, such as this fishing eagle actually attacking a Nile monitor or some other species of reptile. In addition, they are known to also take birds, especially if they're in mid-flight, but they can also feed on amphibians, other reptiles, and even some mammals. They've been known to hunt and kill hyraxes, which is a small furry mammal that's related to the elephant, and even monkeys. So unfortunately, whether you're on land, water, or the air, basically nowhere is really safe. Now let's talk about their influence in human culture. In Zimbabwe, they are the national bird and are even featured on the Zimbabwean flag, as well as being featured, this bird has been featured on coats of arms from Malawi, Namibia, Zambia, South Sudan, and of course, and the Zambian flag. You know what else they've been featured in? They've even been mummified. That's right. These eagles have actually had the privilege of being a few animals that were actually able to be mummified by Egyptians and have been found at the necropolis of El Kab. Now let's talk about the wild things. For starters, take a look at that foot. Never mind the huge talons, I'm talking about the feet. Look at the skin. See how it's kind of all padded and rough and textured? That's perfect for really hanging on to slippery items such as fish, which makes them effective predators. Another cool thing about this bird, you might think that this one here is drowning. It's actually not. Here's the problem. It's caught a fish that's too big for it to be able to actually fly away with. So instead of giving up its catch, it will actually use its wings to kind of go across the water so as to get to the shore where they can then pull the fish out and begin to eat it. And another thing, have you ever heard their call? Well, listen to this. Did you hear all that? Their call is said to be so beautiful and kind of haunting, they've even been called the voice of Africa. Now, unfortunately, like every animal, there are problems and challenges. Now, thankfully, I'm happy to report that this species is not endangered, but they are facing problems from overfishing, as well as pollution in the rivers from pesticides and other human waste that can, unfortunately, have an effect on their eggshells. Just like our American bald eagle, if you remember my tour of North America, these birds, the pesticides, when they get ingested, it can actually thin out the eggshells, and that's just not good in terms of breeding for the species. Thankfully, we can address this from reducing overfishing by really focusing on keeping wild populations stable and finding other ways to make a living with fishing, as well as watching how much pollution we're putting into the water. Really, we don't want to put any pollution at all. We just don't want that. It's bad enough. So we can monitor how much and then try to make better changes for our environment. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is the very last bird species during our expedition here at least through the Serengeti, though we might slip in a couple more here and there. But I am happy to announce that next week, be sure to join me as we walk with the tallest land animal in the world, the giraffe. But until next time, this is Safari Mack. I'll see you all out there.